Hello? If anyone's there in chat, if you could let me know if you can see me, that would be awesome. Um, yeah, so a lot of technical difficulties. This is the first time we're doing the MLB show solo. We didn't exactly have the back end set up the way I thought we would. So, yeah, let me know if you can see me. Plenty to talk about here. I'll take about 20 to 30 minutes or so to do so, assuming I'm live right now. Um, let's see here. Okay, I think we're good to go. All right, so sorry again for the delay. Again, tons of technical difficulties on the back end. I'm not even 100% sure I'm live properly, if we're being honest. But regardless, let's get into the slate here. As is always the case, we got these huge Friday slate to talk through. And yeah, we got the plug up here. I'm going to pull up the model, all the good stuff like that. I had to close out of all these windows, um, trying to get everything to work. Not going to lie, I'm a little bit tilted slash frustrated right now, but I'm hoping we can kind of just pick up where we should be regardless. So I got comments pulled up. Once again, for those who don't know me, my name's Nick Marro. I go by Nick Marro DFS on Twitter and the like. Some of you are familiar with me from the NBA streams. I'm also an avid MLB fan, DFS player, better enthusiast, etc. So yeah, I'm here to help you break down the slate. We've been doing this behind the paywall in Discord over the past few weeks, but now that NBA is over, I think we're going to start to do these more on YouTube. And I can certainly say we're probably going to have a better grasp of this the next time we come through. It's already 6:13 now. Luckily, the slate doesn't log for another 45 minutes. But yeah, if we get a few folks in here, I'm happy to go a little bit longer today. Um, Again, dealing with technical difficulties, definitely apologize for all of that. But yeah, let's get into this. So yeah, I'm pulling up starting lineups. We got the model here. Going to refresh that. There were a few early games today. 2:20, there was a game the Mets killed the Cubs. A few 6:40 games. So if you are using the model, you're going to have to make sure that you're selecting the main slate on either DraftKings or FanDuel. It is the same on both sites, so keep that in mind. Let's start with pitchers today. No real surprise to see Chris Sale at the top of the list. Obviously, not the best matchup here against the Yankees. Dylan Cease looks really good here as well. Chris Paddock looks okay. I mean, honestly, the model loves any pitcher against Oakland because they strike out so much. But it seems like lately, and this is data that extends across the industry, it's not just us. The A's offense is a little bit underrated. So when these guys are going to be popular against them, I'm not always crazy about getting there. But today with Paddock only 50% on DK, where you're playing two pitchers, 8% over on FanDuel at just 8,600. I do think it makes some sense to maybe roster him a little bit. I don't mind it, really. Grayson Rodriguez does look good here. Houston just doesn't strike out all that much. One of my favorite arms today is going to be George Kirby. Cutter Crawford looks okay against Cincinnati. Really not a good park for hitters, though. But if we're going to the plug, scrolling down to the pitchers, and again, if anyone's in chat, let me know that this is live and that this is actually working because, yeah, we started the stream earlier, had tons of technical difficulties. The back end wasn't exactly set up the way I thought it might be. So, hoping now that we're live and everything's good to go. But yeah, I do have the plug up here, which is behind our paywall. So, for the handful of you that are tuning in, you are kind of getting a free peek here. But yeah, Chris Sale leading the model today. No surprise. Like I said, he is a better than 30% K rate, 4% walk rate, doing really well in all of his starts recently. I mean, he had one bad one against Oakland, who we were just talking about, funnily enough. But yeah, I mean, he's tough not to like here. Obviously, not a great park for him. It is a park downgrade. Middle of this Yankees lineup. I mean, Soto, Judge, Stan, Volpe. It's pretty tough to navigate. But at the same time, plenty of K upside. The bottom of this lineup is banged up. No Torres, still no Rizzo. So we're seeing guys like Jahmai Jones, Ben Rice, Oswaldo Cabrera, definitely helping to make this a more appealing matchup here for Sale. So if we're looking at ownership, though, I mean, he is very popular, most popular pitcher, tied with Rodon, oddly enough, over on DK. And then on FanDuel, not quite as popular as Cease, but he is drawing significant ownership over there. But I will say this, I mean, most of the stacks today are super affordable. It's pretty easy to fit almost whatever you want in terms of bats. We do have a Coors game, but it's the Nationals. They're a little bit cheaper than some of the other teams we see go to Colorado. we'll talk about stacks in a little bit, but I mean, a lot of the stuff we like today is affordable. So you're able to get to arms like Sale, like Cease, like Kirby, Rodriguez, etc. Sale definitely stands out, leads the slate again with a 1.19K per IP. He is a slight favorite here. I mean, most books are probably going to take money on both sides of this one. It's essentially a coin flip. What I'm looking at has, yeah, you're paying into both sides. So I guess technically both teams are the favorite. But really, I mean, it's a good enough matchup. And even if Sale does allow a home run or two, it should still probably get there in terms of his K upside. So he's fine. We also got Dylan Cease here today. Pretty interesting spot for him. He's struggled a little bit recently. But the prices come down a bit. Still has a really solid K rate right there with Sale pushing 30%. 50.6 swing strike rate is excellent. The Brewers only have a 123 ISO against right-handed pitching. And yeah, I mean, the Brewers definitely have some pop, but they're really not the same offense on the road. I know Christian Yelich is kind of just, I don't know, a good example of what we're dealing with here. Much better hitter at home. But they do have bats like Adames, Contreras, et cetera, who are all really solid. We've seen Joey Ortiz kind of emerge out of nowhere. Not out of nowhere. He was part of that Corbin Burns trade, but he's kind of a sneaky, decent bat. But really, I mean, looking at this offense, they strike out a ton. I think they're still top 5 in the MLB in Ks, at least against right-handed pitching. So plenty of reasons to like Cease here. And I get another monitor up. But yeah, I mean, he's gone for 6+ Ks in 2 of his last 4, 5+ in all of those starts. Pitching better at home. Had a really nice start against the Athletics at home, and then we're not seeing him at home till back in late May, where he took on the Yankees, but he actually did really well in that spot as well. 4 earned runs, not great, but 9Ks definitely helped to offset that. So, Cease, another arm we're looking at today, but again, when you look at the ownership, pretty popular. It's pretty easy to fit expensive arms today on both sides, just because a lot of the stacks we like are affordable. So yeah, I'm totally fine getting to Cease. Interestingly enough, we are getting to Chris Paddock here again. Our data, and I think data across the industry, just really loves targeting this A's offense. So yeah, 8,700 on DK, 8,600 on FanDuel, and the ownership is down. Like if he was chalk today, I wouldn't feel great about it. But knowing that he's not going to be very popular on either side, we're seeing the 1.01K per IP. He is a decent favorite here, pretty low implied total for the A's there as well. I still think they're underrated as an offense, but this is a good spot for Paddock, who has a wide range of outcomes. Definitely a favorable park here in Oakland. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. There's definitely parts of this order that do scare me, like Soderstrom, Langeliers have a ton of power in the middle. Rooker as well. Gelof batting 8th. One of the better 8 hitters in baseball, in my opinion. Toro's healthy and leading off. But yeah, I mean, Paddock, tons of K upside, affordable, kind of checks a lot of boxes for us. More than anything, he's not as popular as I thought he might be. So totally fine getting to him. Appreciate AJT and Shrek here saying we're all good. Again, dealing with a lot of technical difficulties today and lately with this stream. But like I said, we'll start to iron this out. Still tons of MLB season left. We get the All-Star break coming up, but it's a grind. And it's a marathon, not a sprint. So make sure you're managing your bankroll, all that good stuff. But tonight, there is a lot to like. For those who've been tuning in behind the paywall in the Discord, kind of sorting by OF index rating, usually I like to tell you where I'm cutting off my pitcher pool. I'm playing on FanDuel more so tonight. Really not even sure I'll get anything in on DK. I didn't reserve prior to this video. But I will say I'm getting as low as 10.2 in terms of OF index because I am mixing in some of this DJ Hers guy. Looking at his numbers, I mean, just 35% K rate, that's ridiculous. That's like Paul Skeens level. And the XFIP is really low, 2.13. So he's not showing in his statistics any signs of regression. I will say, though, we're dealing with such a small sample of data that it's risky. Like, I'm not rushing to get to him, but he is very cheap. And if you want to take that small sample of data, he has the best K per IP on the board. Better than Chris Sale, better than Cutter Crawford, better than all these guys. So for me, he's someone I'm mixing in. I mean, the Rockies could certainly tag him here. They've been hitting the ball a little bit better lately. Actually put up some nice scores in that Dodgers series at low ownership. I know the plug was on them most days. Our data was right there. But yeah, I'm mixing in Hers. I will say I have zero interest in Andrew Abbott. Really not going to get to him very much. Don't mind Uvalde at his price. His K metrics are kind of down, though, so tough for me to get there. Knack, interestingly, not trying any ownership against the Angels. I don't mind mixing him in. Again, just another cheap arm if you're really looking to load up on bats. But like I said earlier, a lot of the good bats today aren't all that expensive, so it's not necessarily something I need to do. For those who know me, I am a diehard Yankees fan, but I'm very comfortable saying my least favorite arm on today's slate is Carlos Rodon. We'll talk about him in a little bit when we get to stacks, but he's due for considerable regression. His K metrics aren't all that great, and really, I mean, at high ownership, I just think there's other ways you can go. Like I said, I really, really do like George Kirby here today against the Marlins. His K metrics, again, not all that impressive, but a much better matchup than what Rodon's going to be dealing with in Atlanta. And I know the Braves haven't been hitting the ball that well, but yeah, it's a park upgrade here in Yankee Stadium, obviously. And right here, it tells the whole story. Rodon's 4.31 xFIP, so it's more than a full point higher than his 3.28 ERA. If you're on Fangraphs or you're looking at our stuff or any site, whenever a pitcher's xFIP is considerably higher than their ERA, usually it means they're kind of due to get blown up at some point. And yeah, I think it's coming for Rodon. His BABIP's well below his career average as well. I actually wrote up these stacks today, so I'm quoting myself here. But yeah, I don't mind the righty bats. Riley, Duvall, Albies. Murphy hit 2 home runs yesterday. Historically, throughout his career, crushes left-handed pitching. So even if you're not getting to the Braves, I don't mind him as a one-off. Honestly, him or Duvall are very cheap as one-offs if you want to go to either of them. Ozuna, pretty much matchup proof. Fine getting to him if you can afford him. And then Olson's the one lefty I don't mind mixing in. But yeah, the Braves showing really well in both OF Index and Team ISO, which to me are the most important categories. They don't show well in applied team total, which is going to keep the ownership way down on them. So I'm going to open up another window here for stacks. But yeah, I think in large field tournaments, if you could stomach the risk against Rodon, definitely get yourself to some Braves today. I do think their bats make a lot of sense. And this is coming from a Yankees fan, and I have claimed my biases time and time again, but this is a spot I'm a little bit concerned from Rodon. I do think the Braves could tag him here, and if you could get their bats at low ownership, especially some of the righty power bats, you could really climb a leaderboard on a massive slate like this. It is worth mentioning there is a storm north of the ballpark that we've got to keep an eye on. It sounds like Kevin Roth from RG is saying that it's not going to cross over the stadium. But yeah, I mean, if you don't have a very high risk tolerance, it is one of the only games with weather concerns, so maybe you don't necessarily need to go there. For me, I don't mind. I'm going to mix in some Braves. But yeah, Rodon at high ownership, just not something I think we need to do. And then we get the Twins here. Estes, another instance where we're going to see kind of some regression soon, I think. 4.75 xFIP, pushing 5, obviously not ideal. Allowing nearly 2 home runs per 9 innings. Royce Lewis may be the hottest hitter in baseball right now. He's a guy who's very expensive on both sides, but I think you want to get to, especially if you're playing multiple lineups today. Profiles exceptionally well in this matchup. The Twins, other than Lewis, are pretty affordable. Buxton down in the order has kept his price down. Miranda, Larnach both look good. Willie Castro, I need to see the lineup. Sometimes he bats 9, sometimes he leads off. Obviously, we prefer him leading off. He is leading off today, so you could get to him as well. So Twins, another team that I think we want to get to. And then, yeah, if we pull up the stacks tab here in the model, take a look at ownership. Again, got to select the main slate because there are some earlier games today. Yeah, Twins not popular at all on FanDuel. And then on DK, a little bit more popular, but certainly not an ownership spot we need to avoid. They're not even, I mean, they're borderline top 10 in terms of ownership. So Twins, Braves, 2 really good stacks, in my opinion, especially for high risk contests. If you're playing cash games, I think Boston's probably the team you're going to be honing in on. So Andrew Abbott, I actually thought this kid was pretty good when he came up. Got promoted last year, looked good through some starts. Been pretty inconsistent, though. And yeah, we get the Red Sox rain up here. So this is the one of our 3 stacks today that's actually pretty chalky. But yeah, his 4.74 ISO sits more than a full point higher than his ERA. He's allowed 4+ earned runs in each of his last 3 outings. And yeah, the Red Sox usually were keying in on the lefties with guys like Duran and Devers, but today it's the righties. Tyler O'Neill might be the best bat on the entire slate. I put him on the cover when I published the plug for a reason. If you're in a state where you can bet home runs, I mean, O'Neill's as good a bet as anyone today, in my opinion, to go yard. I did mention here I'll talk more about the Red Sox, but Washington and Colorado did climb up the model right when I was posting this. Obviously, didn't have time to rewrite the top three stacks, so they didn't get in there. But we'll talk about cores in a minute. But Rafaela, I wish he was hitting towards the top of the order, but at the bottom, I mean, he's been excellent. I think he had a 3 home run game this year. This guy just has huge games from time to time. Then we're getting some really cheap options. So I didn't initially think we'd see Romy Gonzalez today, but batting second, dirt cheap on both sides makes a lot of sense. Good correlation piece with O'Neill. Connor Wong at catcher, which can be a tough position to fill, especially on DK. He makes some sense. Dahlbach, fine. Um, Again, I'm focusing in on the righties, but I will say if you want to mix in Devers or Duran, they've both been hitting the ball really well. If they can chase Abbott early, maybe they'll see some at bats against righties. And this is just a great park for all hitters in Cincinnati. Obviously, Fenway is as well, but I wouldn't be afraid to go to the lefties. It's just prioritize the righties, especially O'Neill, then all these cheap pieces. And if you want to mix in one of Devers or Duran, I don't think it's crazy to do. But again, our top three stacks today, when we wrote up this slate were initially going to be Atlanta, Boston, and Minnesota. We've seen things kind of shake out a little bit. So now we're seeing Colorado and Washington as the second and third ring stack. So this is pretty interesting to me. Sorting by ownership, I mean, Washington's popular. They're dealing with Dakota Hudson. Hudson's been frustrating to stack against at times, especially in cores, because obviously you're always expecting a ton of runs from him. Kind of a ground ball pitcher, doesn't really generate a tons of swings and misses, but does a decent job keeping the ball down, which is what you kind of need to find success in Colorado. But at the same time, he's volatile. Same time, he's due for some regression. And the Nationals, like I said earlier, still waiting on their lineup, but they're generally cheaper than most of the other teams we see going into cores. CJ Abrams is banged up. He's kind of projected to be back tonight, I think, but waiting to see on that. I imagine that's why the lineup's not out yet because we're kind of waiting on that news. But Lane Thomas, Jesse Winker, Keeper Ruiz, Joey Meneses, even Rosario, like honestly, 1 through 6. All makes a lot of sense. If Sinzel breaks the lineup, he's okay as well. Probably bats towards the bottom of the order, though. But we do like the Nationals here, and the model seems to be warming up to them after not really liking them earlier in the day. Big part of that's the weather. It's hot there, near 40% humidity in Colorado. You know that ball's going to carry them regardless, but these are definitely pluses. I talked about DJ Hers earlier. His numbers are ridiculous, but at the same time, I mean, is anyone going to be surprised if he suddenly struggles in Colorado? I wish I had a little bit more time today to kind of dig into his pitch mix. Guys who have like big breaking action in their pitches or like really rely on movement tend to struggle in cores because the ball doesn't break the same. Um, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's tough to say for sure, but the model likes Colorado. Just trust the data. If you want to mix in some Rocky stacks, they do project to be pretty low on compared to some of the other top teams. Getting some love, especially on FanDuel, but on DK, I think they're lower owned than they should be. We also have Toronto here, who I'm really interested in, mostly because they got some cheap bats in there now. They've called a few kids up. I know Bichette's out; he's banged up. There's a few other guys that are hurt, but let's see here. So yeah, they got this kid Addison Barger, um, old Revis Martinez. Like these aren't great bats by any stretch, but they're really lowering the overall cost of the stack. So I don't mind going there. They're taking on Carlos Carrasco, who's obviously pretty terrible historically. It hasn't been good in years. And yeah, I think Varsho's a priority here if you're going to them. Jansen Guerrero, obviously a power against anyone. Then if you mix in those cheap bats, you could pay up at pitching. So I don't know. I think the top stacks going to speak for themselves for the most part. Baltimore's interesting. They're taking on this kid for Houston, who I don't know much about. So this one's kind of a wild card for me. But yeah, I mean, the model doesn't seem to like them all that much. Personally, I don't know. Is this kid Jake Bloss any good? I don't know. So maybe we can get to them here. They crushed the Yankees yesterday. So, I mean, they're obviously swinging the bats well. But yeah, I don't know. Baltimore's in play, but not really a priority. You already talked about most of the top stacks. So, yeah, anyone tuned in right now, feel free to get in any questions. Spend another 10 minutes or so kind of talking through things. But that's kind of the overall lay of the land today. Again, I think you could pay up at pitcher, afford a lot of these stacks because they're mostly affordable. Um, and yeah, just keep an eye on ownership. I think Rodon is over-owned. I think the Braves are under-owned in that game. Sale, very popular for a risky matchup. So maybe you want to go to the Yankees for some leverage. But at the same time, I mean, it's Chris Sale, one of the best arms on a massive slate. I don't know that you necessarily need to go there. Um, Another stack I'm interested in is the Dodgers. A little bit surprised they weren't showing even better in the model here. So yeah, ranking down around 16th. I mean, if we narrow it down to the main slate, they're kind of borderline top 10. Second highest team total on the board. Um, it's just not that popular. I think it's a pricing thing more than anything. Sandoval has some talent, super inconsistent though, especially on the road. He's tend to struggle. So yeah, I like the righty bats here. Will Smith, Teoscar Hernandez, Andy Pages, Vargas. If he makes the lineup, all makes sense. Obviously, Freeman and Otani are essentially matchup proof, but definitely prioritize the righties if you go to the Dodgers. And that's another team I'm kind of mixing in. If I'm using cheaper pitching, I want it to be for these like really high upside stacks, like a Dodgers team. So I'm gonna get to some Dodgers. Wish the model liked them a little bit more. I think it did earlier in the day, but again, we saw these cores teams really kind of leapfrog a bunch of stuff here. So not necessarily a spot that I'm crazy about, but all right. So yeah, how's Cleveland look tonight? Good question. So Toronto, I know on paper Cleveland looks half decent. I think the model doesn't love them here. Um, but yeah, I mean, pretty high total, which is a good sign. They've been swinging pretty good bats throughout this order. I mean, Kwan, one of the higher OPSs in the league, which is surprising to say. No David Fry right now, who's been tremendous, but they did call up Jonathan Rodriguez, who's dirt cheap. Actually had some pretty good games hitting before he was sent back down, but he's a guy you could use to kind of cheapen the stack overall. So, yeah, if you want to get to Cleveland here against Yariel Rodriguez, I don't mind it. The issue is Rodriguez could get chased after 3 or 4 innings, and then you're dealing with the bullpen, which makes matchups a little bit more difficult. I will say the Toronto bullpen isn't all that great, especially their long relievers. So if you want to mix in some Cleveland, fine. But just looking at the data, I mean, they're not really jumping off the board or anything. So yeah, feel free to get to some Guardians here. Not really a priority for me. I probably do have a stack or two on FanDuel in the 25 max $2, but again, not something I'm forcing. Again, the stack I like that's chalky is probably going to be Boston. Don't mind Washington either. Still waiting on that lineup. I imagine we have it soon. Toronto's ownership is steaming up. Seattle's an interesting spot here against Trevor Rogers. So the Mariners strike out as much as any team in baseball. So opposing pitchers always have upside. Rogers is dirt cheap coming off 2 good starts. So if you want to get really weird today, you can maybe mix them in. But guys like Dylan Moore, Mitch Garver, Cal Raleigh, Ty France, Mitch Haniger, they all mash lefties. So I'm fine getting to some of their righty bats. Crawford at the top of the order is fine as well. Probably draws no ownership in the lefty spot, but he's someone I do tend to like to mix in regardless of matchup. So Mariners, another team I maybe be considering here. Um, but yeah, let's go to the batters. Maybe I'll shout out some home run calls, and then we'll wrap things up. Again, apologize for the technical difficulties early. I know the video here, like we want to get it so I'm in a nice little box. We got my screen here. And I don't know. We could get all the data on the screen that we want. Still kind of ironing out some details. This kind of happened on the fly today, but we'll get there. But yeah, again, Braves look great. Definitely under-owned. I think Verdon's going to regress. As a Yankees fan, I hope it doesn't happen, but my DFS lineups kind of do. And again, no surprise, Tyler O'Neill, our cover boy, he was actually lower than Seager when I put him there. So I actually feel pretty good. I feel vindicated that he is now higher rated, highest rated bat on the slate. So if you're looking for a home run call today, it is Tyler O'Neill. Just looking at the data, Royce Lewis on fire. He's another one that I definitely think probably has a good chance to go yard here. Pages for the Dodgers, another guy, probably really high odds if you're looking for a long shot home run call. But yeah, I mean, no real surprises. I didn't talk about Texas much. Brady Singer's another one of these arms like Andrew Heaney, almost not quite to that extreme, but he can look really good one night, look terrible another. Allowed 3 home runs against the Dodgers his last time out. Obviously, not the same matchup here. He does tend to struggle against lefties though. So Seager looks good. Lowe, Heim, Josh Smith is hitting towards the top of the order. I don't mind maybe getting to some Texas bats. Only bringing them up because I see Seager way up here. He's definitely a bat I wouldn't mind using as a one-off. Looks like Abrams is in. So that Nationals lineup is out. Going to refresh my other screen. That's a good thing for sure. Definitely helps their upside. He's their best hitter by far, in my opinion. Him and Lane Thomas definitely anchors of that stack if that's where you choose to go. Yeah, they got Millis in a catcher. He's dirt cheap. Senzel is in batting seventh. Don't mind him. Meneses. So yeah, no real surprises there. Don't mind the Nationals lineup at all here though. Um, but yeah, the Twins we didn't talk about. I mean, Cutter Crawford, kind of annoying. Another one of these arms. I know I sound redundant. Who can look great one night, look terrible the next. Dominated the Yankees last time out. But yeah, he had a stretch where he was struggling against Baltimore, Atlanta, Philly. So he's been facing really good teams. The Reds, pretty decent offense, not quite on the level of those I've been listing though. But this is a great park for hitters. The wind is blowing out. Not that it matters much in Cincinnati. That park is pretty much made for hitters regardless. But yeah, I'm not going to get to Crawford much, but we do see a lot of Cincinnati bots towards the top of the model. So I think they're at least worth shouting out. Again, Rafael, even though he's batting ninth, I do like him in stacks with Tyler O'Neill. Um, Starting by ownership, just trying to see what's over around here. Um, yeah, I mean, no real surprises. Baltimore is getting some love against that kid for Houston. That's something I'll probably have to dig a little bit deeper into when I hop off stream. Um, Campbell scratch for Higashioka in that San Diego game. I mean, yeah, a bit of a downgrade. Neither are really good, though. Ross said there's a small chance for a delay in New York and Colorado, more likely in New York. Yeah, so I was looking at what he was saying earlier as well. There's definitely a storm in New York State. He's saying it probably stays north of the park. Um, so yeah, maybe a little bit risky if you're going to the arms there. Again, I'm not playing Rodon at all today. I think he's way overowned. But if you're going to Atlanta Bats, I think you're fine. Me personally, I think Kirby probably is the highest floor of an arm today. His K metrics really don't add up to the same as the likes of Sale or Cease, though. So if you're playing cash, you want floor, I'd probably go with Kirby, but I do like Sale. I think that weather does stay clear. But again, I'm not a weatherman, so keep an eye on Roth's feed. Check out your local weather sites, or not local, but what the weather forecast says for New York. There is a storm in the state. I just don't know if it cuts into the park or the city. Um, and yeah, I'm really not worried about the weather in Colorado. They're always on the weather report. It's always fine there. Like, I don't know. We can talk conspiracy. I feel like sometimes I just throw them on there to drive down ownership. Probably not, but just a fun thought to have, I guess. But yeah, again, the big thing about these slates on Fridays, I think Tuesdays as well, is there is so much to choose from. So if there's a weather spot, you have low risk tolerance, feel free to just avoid it. If there's a stack we're recommending you don't have a good feeling about, there's two others we're recommending. So just feel free to kind of pivot that way. Um, I'll take one more look at the pitcher data. Again, not getting too weird with it today. I think that kid for the Washington Nationals does interest me a little bit just because he's so cheap. It is the Rockies, though, so definitely some risk there. That's being DJ Hers. Don't play Abbott, in my opinion, against Boston, even though he would present a ton of leverage against one of the more popular stacks on the slate. Not crazy about Eovaldi. He has some upside, though, at his price. Knack, I don't mind, especially at low ownership. Could be on a short leash, though. Dave Roberts doesn't tend to let his young arms go very deep. I love Kirby here. Paddock scares me, but he's also scaring the field, so his upside does make a lot of sense at low ownership. Grayson looks fine here against Houston, but again, the Astros don't K much. And then Cease, kind of risky, plenty of upside. Sale, kind of risky, plenty of upside. Both very popular, though. But yeah, I mean, I'm keeping my pitcher pool relatively tight. Again, not playing any Rodon. I think he's overowned, especially on DK. FanDuel, too, as well. Like, the fact he's the third highest on pitcher to me is kind of baffling. Um, Definitely prefer Kirby if you can just find 300 more. Mixing in some hers, like I said. But yeah, really nothing shocking there. Yeah, that Nationals team total is creeping up around 6 runs now, so definitely want to mix in some of them. But yeah, anyone else have any questions, whether it be slate related or just strategy related? Probably going to close this down in a minute or two. Again, we did get a late start today, so I don't mind going a little bit later. We'll iron out these technical difficulties over the next week or so and make sure next time that we hit the ground running right at 6 p.m. So thanks for those who tuned in. I know we were late. I know there were issues with the stream. Really appreciate it. And again, I think we can build some momentum with the show because plenty of baseball left now that the NBA season's over. Still want to keep that YouTube presence going. So like the video, definitely subscribe to the channel. I know the guys are putting up best ball content constantly. Excuse me, a little early for me. But I know they got UFC, PGA, a lot of other sports going on right now for DFS as well. So plenty of stuff there. If you subscribe, you'll get notified when we do go live. And yeah, great community too. If you check out the links in the description below, get in the Discord, one of the cheaper sites to get in there, and just kind of pick our brains. And yeah, you get access to the model, which you see here, which updates in real time. Very useful tool. We also have a lineup builder as well. If you are somebody who mass multi enters, I don't know, even want to call it old school. I like to hand build. I mean, I play only 20 to 40 lineups per night. Um, take a lot of time kind of hand building. But I do look at the lineup builder regardless, kind of see what it's spitting out. And I use that kind of as a guidepost. So even if you're not using a lineup builder, it is helpful to kind of see what you're getting with data, see which lineups are popping towards the top of our model in terms of upside, etc. So plenty to like here, really affordable prices. Well, let's see. Appreciated power. Colin Ray. I don't know. I'll take a deep dive quickly into Colin Ray here. Because, yeah, I mean, I've never been a believer in him. I've stacked against him a ton, though. Never seems to go well. But, yeah, against the Padres, I mean, Padres' bats are pretty hot right now. I know they were going off last night. I think Machado homered, Tatis homered, Cronenworth hit a walk-off. That's a streaky offense, kind of like the Yankees. When they're locked in, they're super dangerous against anyone. Yeah, but Ray's due for some regression. I got his FanGraphs pulled up here. So ERA is 3.29, xFIP is 4.50. His 256 BABIP's a little bit lower than his career average. So I don't know. I think he's going to get knocked around, maybe not to an extreme extent, but I don't think he's as good as his surface level statistics are suggesting. And it's a really low K rate for him, too, 60.7%. Generally pitches to contact, which isn't a great thing. So, yeah, Ray due for some regression probably puts me on Padres bats more than anything. But yeah, again, tons to choose from today. You don't have to force that. If you're a Colin Ray fan and you want to mix him in, he's cheap enough for you. I don't hate it. But again, I'd rather take risks. When I'm taking risks on cheap arms, I want K upside. And you're not really getting that with Ray. So, yeah, like I said, hers super risky, but the highest K per IP on the board, albeit with a limited sample size. Definitely someone I'm going to be mixing in. Knack as well. I don't really see the numbers here right now for him, but he's someone I'd mix in. Cutter Crawford too. Hate the matchup against Cincinnati, but yeah, you're going to gamble on cheap pitching from time to time to fit in the big bats. But for me, you want the K upside because strikeouts can offset a few runs allowed. If you have a guy that doesn't strike anyone out, they pretty much can't allow any runs. Or on DK, they can't allow many hits because you're losing points for those as well. So Ks are king in the MLB. So you're sorted by K per IP. I mean, not a ton of cheap arms. That's why Paddock, I mean, at high ownership, I never like him, but today he's pretty low owned. Probably mix him in. I do feel better about him than someone like Colin Ray, just knowing that he has some strikeout upside. All right. So I think that's all, everyone. We're coming up right on a half hour. Again, thanks for bearing with me on the technical difficulty side of things. And yeah, add me in Discord, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and we'll be back next week with a sharper production. I'm expecting, but let's have some fun tonight. Take care, everyone. Have a great weekend.